Hi, my name is Jack. Thank you for joining me here at the Reiki Den. We're actually upstairs from the den at this moment, and I'm sure you can hear my grandson in the background in the living room. He is singing his own songs and trying to entertain us, so I hope you can hear me okay. So I'm going to bring this just a touch closer here just to make it a little bit easier. So I'll explain that after. I've been doing some extra tarot study recently, and there's a couple of good reasons behind it. Not only is, in my mind, tarot one of those things where you need to keep practicing, you need to keep improving your knowledge and kind of reminding yourself what the different meanings are, as well as expanding on that knowledge, because there's never going to be just one concrete set of keywords. There's never going to be one concrete set of meanings for any given deck. No matter what system you're using, those definitions and meanings are going to grow and expand based on our culture and how it is also growing and expanding. So I wanted to definitely improve some of that. Now, in the process, okay, and I believe I've talked about it before, I have been using Benebell Wen's Holistic Tarot as part of my study process, all right? And I can't actually recall if I mentioned it in the video or not, but this is my copy, okay? It is, of course, a very thick book, and it covers a lot of detail. Now, one of the things that I really like about this book is that it actually does eliminate all the mystic woo-woo from it and like demystifies the tarot. And the reason that I like that is because not every tarot reader is coming at this from a pagan perspective or a witch perspective or a mystical perspective at all. Some of them are just looking for that concrete way to read these cards. And don't ask me what brings them into it, because I really don't have that answer. But it's something that, is important, because so many of us come from different traditions and different cultures and different backgrounds and different upbringings, that sometimes it's difficult to look at this particular tarot book and say, this is geared towards pagan author or pagan tarot readers, but I'm not pagan, so I don't know if I can really relate to that. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of it's one of those things where what you choose in order to learn them is going to be heavily based on your own background and your own personality and interests and where they lie. And that's one of the best things about this particular book, is that it's not actually coming from any particular religious place. It's not coming from a spiritual place. It's coming from a very matter-of-fact, I'm holding it upside down, a very matter-of-fact, non-woo-woo kind of way, non-woo-woo kind of approach. And I really, really appreciate that. Now, I believe I did actually talk about in previous videos that this book is actually the reason that I actually learned to love the Rider-Waite system, and the Rider-Waite specifically, the Smith-Waite Centennial is the one that I use. And it's because of this book that happened. So, Benebell has additional tarot information all over her website. There is so much information there that you could spend weeks and you would still not be able to go through all of the information that she has there. And that's just from her blog posts. Okay. Now, one of the things that I've been doing is taking a look at the information that she has for professional tarot readers, since that's where I sit. Okay. And I run across this post, and I'm going to see if I can find the date on here, because I didn't actually notice it when I opened the post up here. It's old. It says July 25th, 2016. So why is that important if it's that old? Well, you know what? It actually is titled My Responses to the 10 Questions Every Tarot Reader Must Answer. And that is what got me thinking. 10 questions every tarot reader must answer. And a lot of these questions I actually had answers for, but I had never really articulated them. So I decided I wanted to actually go ahead and articulate those answers here. Since my channel is just starting, it doesn't matter as much to me that, we're looking at a blog post that was written, almost 8 years ago. it's more about the topic itself and how it is actually still relevant. And since I'm just beginning with my channel here, I'm not, as regular at posting as I would like to be. So I don't have a whole lot of material up right now. And I thought this would be a really good thing to have included in that beginning of, my work here. So I'm going to go through question by question, and I'm going to answer them all for you as best as I can. As I said before, my grandkids are in the living room, so if I do need to get up, I will, and I will be returning. You guys won't even notice. So the very first question, were you mentored or were you self-taught? I was actually both. I was mentored second, but to begin with, I was self-taught. And since my mentorship, I have also been self-taught. So when I first started, I guess I went back and forth actually. My grandmother, in introducing me to the tarot and a little bit about how the system works, I do kind of classify that as a little bit of mentorship, because she's the one that kind of opened my eyes up to what it actually is and what tarot is actually able to do for us. So even though it's not an actual mentorship, she's the one that introduced me to the concept. So we're going to include her, but not. Okay. And then when I started reading seriously for myself, I would have been 19 or so. And during that time, it was all self-taught. I bought a copy of the Rider-Waite, the ugly yellow one, and I didn't even have a book. The only tarot book that I had was the little white book that went in the box, and that was all I had to go with. Now, that's probably a big part of the reason why I actually detested that deck so much when I first started with it, because I really had nothing except for those tiny little, 3 and 4 line blurbs that go with each card in that little white book. And that was all I had. I didn't know anything about spreads. I didn't know how to use them. I didn't know how to interpret them. I didn't understand any of what actually goes with it. And so I had to teach myself. And it was a difficult deck to work with when you don't actually have any of that information. I mean, I'm sure any of you that have picked up a tarot deck, like the Thoth Tarot as an example, it's one of those decks that is, if you're not familiar with the system, you're looking at it and it's like looking at the alphabet for a different language. You don't know the letters. You don't know what any of them mean. You don't know what the words are. You're completely blind. And that was kind of how I went in to learning the RWS system. So definitely self-taught. And I actually jumped almost immediately out of the RWS system and into the Fairy Wicca Tarot, which is a system all of its own. And I was able to learn how to read that deck long before I was able to read anything else, because for me that deck was a lot more intuitive. Because of the way that the book was written, it didn't really give you concrete definitions the same way that a lot of other decks do, like the RWS. So I was able to just kind of tap into my intuition and go with it. But officially learning how to read tarot, how to use spreads, how to, ask the right questions, things like that. Partly that was I was mentored by someone I met when I had first moved back to this province at about 21, around there. I think I was 21, I think. Anyways, so I learned a lot from her, and she actually read the Robin Wood, and I'd never even heard of it before. It wasn't until walking into her shop that I realized that there was so many varieties of tarot decks. Okay, and I actually have my own Robin Wood tarot that I use for readings now, and this is typically my go-to when I'm reading for other people, primarily because this deck has been with me for such a long time that I'm 100% comfortable and familiar with it now. That doesn't mean I'm not still studying it, because I am, but it's definitely become a go-to. But I'd never even heard of it prior to meeting this lady, and she worked with me and taught me how to use spreads, and then how to not use spreads and still interpret those cards. And she taught me how to work with them so that I could learn the meanings without having to go through this process of rote, dry memorization. Okay. And it worked for me, right? In the beginning, it definitely worked for me. I did kind of go beyond that after a while. She and I drifted apart a little bit as life kind of went on, and I just continued learning on my own. And it was during the course of learning on my own that I was able to kind of continue teaching myself. And right about this point was where I started actually collecting decks. And that helped me as well, because I had to learn to connect the RWS system from deck to deck to deck that I was actually working with, even though I wasn't working with the RWS decks specifically. I was working with clones, basically. So I did a little bit of both. Since then, I have done a lot more self-taught, although I would, at this point in my life, have to say that Bernadette Wen has become kind of a mentor for me, even though it's like an unofficial distance. I've never had a single conversation with her kind of a capacity, because the book that she wrote is so in-depth and so detailed, and I learned so much from this particular book that I really feel like it changed my reading style, whereas other books I had read previously did not have that same kind of an effect on the way that I was reading. So I do feel very much like I did and do have her as a mentor in my readings. So I guess long-winded way of saying a little bit of both, right? So now that second question, are you a psychic or a tarot reader? Well, I don't like the word psychic, so I'm a tarot reader. Why don't I like that word, though? Well, there's this preconceived notion of what a psychic is and what a psychic does, and I disagree with what that actually is and what that actually looks like. I think we have been so caught up in the media version of what a psychic actually is that it's difficult to use that word and have somebody actually understand what it is that you're referring to, because as soon as you say, yes, I'm a psychic, they will immediately go to that media version of what they've witnessed on TV and in movies and heard on radios and read about in books and things like this and fiction and what have you. So it's a really loaded word now. I am a tarot reader, and I actually tend to refer to myself more as a tarot counselor. But that actually does get into another question. So I'm going to leave that for right now. But I would classify myself as a tarot reader, not a psychic. That doesn't mean I don't have psychic abilities. Okay. I do have some clairsentience. I have some mediumship abilities, but nothing I've developed. They're just there. And sometimes they kick in and sometimes they don't. And I don't rely on it, so I really don't feel a need to advertise that those skills are there, because they're just something that's a part of me, and that's it. They don't make me any special. They don't make me special or any more special than anyone else. So we're not going to use that word for me. All right. So question number 3, are your predictions accurate, and is accuracy important to you? Yes, 100% accuracy is important. Are my predictions accurate? I have a hard time with the concept of predictions. I'm not a fortune teller, okay? I'm not here to tell you what your future is. And this does tie in a little bit to what I had said already about being a tarot counselor, all right? I'm not going to sit here and tell you what your future is going to be. I'm not the reader that's going to sit there and say, you know what, you're going to get married in 6 months and this guy is going to be blah, 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 and you're going to have 14 kids and, married white picket fence, the whole bit. Like, I'm not that reader. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, you need to leave your job and go to that one over there, even though you have no education, you have no idea what that job is all about, but that one's going to be so much better for you. Sorry, the ADHD is kind of coming through. Sorry. I'll try to slow down a little bit. Is it important that my predictions are accurate? I mean, of course it's important. Like, absolutely it's important, but I don't really look at my readings as predictions, okay? And this is where the tarot counseling part comes in. I refer to myself more as a tarot counselor, and I do tarot counseling sessions. So what exactly is it then that actually means? I think I did cover it in a reading or in a video at one point, but we're going to go into it a little bit again as just part of one of these questions. So let's say, for example, you come to me and you say, you know what, I have this job offer and I don't know if I should take it. Okay? So let's look at that. Let's dissect that. Let's pull that apart and see what it is that's holding you back, so that you are able to make the clearest decision, the most well-informed decision. We're going to look at things like, if you choose to take this job offer, what is going to show up in your life? What can you expect to see? Whereas if you stay where you are, what is this going to look like for you? And then you're better informed to decide which path you actually want to take. And it doesn't matter if you're looking at it in terms of a relationship or a career or your finances or anything like that. If you want to do shadow work using the tarot, that's okay. I'm going to sit here and work through it with you. You know, that's something that I do. But I'm not going to predict your future. I am not going to sit here and tell you, you know, on May 17th, 2025, you are going to get married and, you know, marry the love of your life and you're going to live happily ever after. That's not how my readings work. All right. My goal is to help you as the seeker, as the querent, the person asking the question, to get to the heart of what the problem is. So let's use that career question again. Okay. You've got this job offer. So what is it that's holding you back? Is it the finances? Do you have to relocate? Is it going to drastically upheave your life? Like, you'll be working nights instead of days, or, you know, you would have to commute really far, or you wouldn't have to commute at all anymore, but, you know, there's other things that you would need to take into consideration, right? Like, maybe you'll be making less, but then you won't have to commute. So is it really worth it, you know, to make that change? So I hope that actually helps a little bit on like what my readings actually look like, and why accuracy is 100% important, but predictions are not something that I really aspire to. My goal is to help you figure out where you are at right now, so that you know better which decision, which option is the best one for you moving forward. So that's kind of where I come to this from. So question number 4, is there anything you can't predict in a reading? Well, that goes back to the lack of predictions. I don't predict anything. I'm not going to sit here and tell you what will happen. The other thing that kind of holds me back with those questions is that a tarot reading has a set time frame, right? It's only valid for a short period of time. Most of the time it's 6 months or less. And the reason for that is because there are so many little details that you can change from day to day to day, right? And as, you know, a very unlikely but easy to understand example, okay, let's say you get up tomorrow morning, all right, and you're getting dressed in the dark and you don't want to turn on the light. It hurts the eyes. You don't want to wake somebody up, whatever it is. Okay. So you get up in the morning, you're putting your socks on. Turns out you pulled out 2 different socks and you don't even realize it. Okay. So you put your shoes on and you realize, oh my God, I'm wearing a green sock and a yellow socks. What am I supposed to do now? Well, I don't have time. I need to leave. It's going to have to do. I'm just going to have to, you know, try to hide it a little bit. And off you go, right? You don't have time to like go back and fix it. So then you're at the coffee shop, you know, 20 minutes later, getting, you know, your coffee for the morning to take to work with you, drink on your commute, whatever. And somebody in the lineup notices that you have one green sock and one yellow sock, or one blue sock and one yellow sock, whatever the hell it was that I said. One of them is yellow, okay? And so they notice, and that person who is also a regular at this coffee shop and is also there every single morning when you are there and has been for the last 2 years, but has never spoken a word to you, has never even noticed you before, and you have never noticed them. Now suddenly that person is coming up to you and saying, hey dude, did you know you're wearing a yellow sock along with that green and blue one? One's patterned, one's yellow, okay? So then it sparks up this conversation, right? And you're both laughing and talking about, how ridiculous it is, and you noticed, but you didn't have the time, and all of a sudden you have a new friend in that one conversation because you put on 2 different color socks that morning and didn't notice. If you had put on 2 black socks or 2 white socks or 2 matching socks of any color, that conversation would never have happened. Okay? So that tiny little in the dark decision, that's not even really a decision, changes the course of your life forever. Now you've got this new friend that turns into a romance, that turns into a marriage, that turns into a family. Those are things that would not have happened with that person had you not put on the wrong socks. Okay, so that's an extreme example, but it does demonstrate that those small decisions can change our path in an instant. Okay, and that's part of the reason why I shy away from predicting, because you can walk out my front door at the end of your reading and walk up the street and make a call. You know what? I'm going to go get coffee at the Tim Hortons across the street before I get on the bus. Or before I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to drive over there. Or, you know what? It's across the street. I'm just going to walk over and I'll come back and get in my car. Like, there's so many different options. And the one that you take can change your path. And it can change where you're headed. So making predictions with tarot readings are difficult at best. Okay? So I don't really go that way, which is, goes along with what I was saying previously. But is there anything that you can't predict in a reading? I mean, there's lots of things that I can't predict in a reading. I can't predict the decision that you're going to make that's going to change this. I can tell you the expected outcome if nothing changes. And that it's impossible that nothing will change. So it's really important to keep that in mind when, not only when you're getting a tarot reading, but when you are giving one. You cannot predict the decision that that person is about to make the second they walk out your door. You cannot make the prediction on what would happen if they chose to drive their car across the street to get a coffee as opposed to walking across the street. You can't predict those things. So, are there things I can't predict? Yeah. Human nature, human choice. We have free will, and I can't predict free will. And nobody can. I don't care what they tell you. Nobody can predict human free will. So that's that. All right. Now, do you use only tarot or are you multidisciplinary? Well, I use tarot. I use pendulums. I use oracles. I use runes. I have a bone set that I read sometimes, although I'm not very good with that one yet. I do read the Lenormand. And yeah, so there's a lot of different things that I use. I can use Ouija boards and do regularly whenever I can, although I don't believe I have one right now. I did, but I'm not sure what happened to it. So there's lots of different modalities that I use for working with people. As well, I am a shamanic practitioner thanks to the shamanic Reiki program that I took. I gained a lot of skills in that, and one of the things that I can use in that is actually journeying, which is in and of itself a whole other discipline that I can make use of during the course of a reading. So there's a lot of different modalities there, so I definitely don't focus on just one. Question number 6, is the message in the cards or in your head? It is both. It is absolutely 1000% both. And here's why. All right, each of those cards, okay, Ace of Swords, has a meaning. So this card talks a lot about intellect and being like intelligence and thinking about your plans and your planning stages. You're putting things before you actually put things into action. This is where you're at, right? So it has a concrete meaning. So yes, that is in the cards. But the part that's in your head is how you interpret it and apply that. So if somebody is asking me about a career, okay, I'm going and I pull this particular Ace of Swords. I'm looking at this card going, okay, well, you're looking at, a new career. So there's a lot of thought involved. Okay, so extreme, again, maybe they're a philosopher by education, right? Or they're a lawyer, or they're, engaging in an occupation that requires a great deal of thought. A doctor or a judge or a teacher or anybody within these really intellectual careers. Okay, this could be a writer. The phrase "the pen is mightier than the sword." Here you have the sword, right? So there's a lot of different options, but which one is it? Which one are we looking at? Well, that's going to depend on the reader themselves and how they interpret it based on the person's question. So there's a lot open to interpretation. The cards, yes, they have a meaning, but this card in a love reading is going to come out a lot different than it's going to in a career reading. Okay, in a love reading, this is more going to tell you that there's a lot of thinking going on in the relationship. You're connecting on an intellectual level, but maybe not so much on an emotional level. There's definitely some disconnect here. You've got that double-edged sword going on. So it's good that you're connecting intellectually, but you're missing that emotional component. You see how that goes? Okay, so this is an example there. All right, so it is definitely both. The message is in the cards, but it is also in the head of the reader. Now, question 7. I actually really like this question. Are you a priest or a fortune teller? Well, I am definitely not a fortune teller. We've already covered that. Are you a priest? Well, actually, I would say yes. Okay, I do priestess work for Sekhmet, and that is slowly increasing in what I do. So my tarot sessions are slowly becoming, in some capacity, part of the devotional work that I do for her. Not all of them, don't get me wrong, not every single one of them is going to be tied to Sekhmet in some way, but there's a lot of them that will be. And those are connected to my priest duties with Sekhmet. So I'm definitely going to fall under that category of priest. But I don't like that those are the only two options that you're being given with this question. Because are you really going to be a tarot priest? Or priestess? Or priestess, like myself? Or are you just a fortune teller? Like, it's just the two labels make it really complicated to answer, because I don't see myself really in terms of tarot as either one. And that's goes back to that whole, I'm a tarot counselor. Now I do that as a healer, and I do that as Sekhmet's healer, as Sekhmet's priestess. Yes, I help people to heal, and that's why I do a lot of work with shadow work for clients to help them through their shadows with my tarot. So that's something else. Are you a fixer or a looker? All right. So it took me reading Benebell's answer before I really truly understood this question. So we're going to rephrase it a little bit. All right. Are you a fixer? Do you look for solutions to the problem in the reading? Or are you a looker? You're just going to read the cards, tell the person what you're seeing, and that's it. I'm a fixer. I am going to see what I can see in the reading that will help you to move past the stumbling block, that will help you to see exactly what it is that you need to do as your next steps. I'm going to help you find a solution to that problem. So that's definitely makes me a fixer. I can't just sit there and read the tarot and be like, you know what, like, you're having a really crap time right now. See you later. Come back next week. Like, that's not gonna work for me. And it just seems silly to me. Like, obviously that person is coming to me for a reason. They have a question. And if they have that question, they're looking for a solution. It's a problem that they're facing, that they're looking for a solution for. So being able to use the cards to kind of give them a little bit of guidance on, like, so you have 3 different options on where you can take this right now. You know, the cards are telling me that you could do this, this, or this. So if you do option A, you know, this is the likely outcome. If you choose option B, this is your likely outcome. Option C, well, we don't want to go there because this is the likely outcome. You know, that we don't want that one. We're going to take that one right off the table. So I am definitely a fixer. Definitely. Do you read for free or for a fee? Both. But honestly, with rare exception now, it is primarily for a fee. I do readings for people where I don't charge them anything. I do. And I kind of pick and choose based on, what's brought to me. Like if a person approaches me and says, you know what, I really, really need help with this, but I really can't afford a whole lot. Let's do an exchange. Let's trade services. Let's find something that you can do for me to help me. And that way there's no actual exchange of money, but there's an exchange of energy. And that's something that I was taught with Reiki is really, really important, is that there is that energy exchange. It does not need to be financial. And I am perfectly fine with exchanging under certain circumstances. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to just turn around and drop everything and do free readings for everybody. Or do exchange readings for everybody, because that's not how it works. Like, this is part of, how I'm making my money. So I can't just stop charging everybody. I do need to live as well, but I'm also not wanting to let finances get in the way of somebody getting the answers that they need. And it's the same thing for me with Reiki. If you're really in need of that kind of healing, that kind of work, I'm totally fine with doing a shorter Reiki session with you. We might do 15 minutes or even half an hour. We might not do a full hour, but 15 minutes, 30 minutes, that's okay. And I'm perfectly fine with doing that, because for me, it's giving back to the community that gives me the ability to do the job that I'm doing. Right? So this is like my way of giving thanks to the universe for everything that the universe has given me. So that was question 9. So question number 10, is there anything you won't predict in a reading? Does very much take us back to that I don't predict in a reading. Not the way that most people think of predictions. Okay. What I do is, like, there are certain questions I won't read for. I don't read for medical issues. I don't provide medical advice during readings. I don't provide medical advice during Reiki, during shamanic Reiki, and journeys. I don't provide medical advice. That's outside of my knowledge, and I will not give you information based on that. I don't read on health issues either, because I'm not a doctor. I don't have the ability to, I think I said health issues. But health and legal are essentially the 2 areas that I don't read on. Okay. I kind of lost my train of thought there, so I apologize. But yeah, I don't read on health, and I don't read on legal. So if you come to me with a question and you say, you know what, I'm really not, I haven't been feeling that well lately. I really need to know if there's something else going on and I should see my doctor, or if I can just, ignore it. Well, I'm going to hesitate with a question like that, because I don't want to be the person that says to you, you know what, you can just ignore it. And then it turns out that it's actually something really, really major. And now you're worse off than you were to begin with, right? I don't want to be held responsible for that, even though it's your choice to make. And I refuse to put myself in that position. So yes, there are things that I refuse to read on, questions I refuse to answer or to tackle. But that doesn't mean I can't work with you. Rewording a question can be vital to getting to the heart of the question without those questions that are, am I in the worst shape possible? So sorry about that. I actually had to stop the recording here for about a half hour, but I did get through those questions, all 10 of them. And, honestly, I would really like to hear what some of the rest of you think. If you're a tarot reader, what is your interpretation of those questions and how would you respond to them? And if you're not a tarot reader, what do my responses to those questions make you think about tarot readers, and about what it is that we do? So I would love to hear from all of you. Definitely drop me a line, leave a message below. You can also email me through, I'll put the email below because I don't know what I was thinking when I made it, but it's a pain in the butt. There's a dot between every word. It's the.reiki.den.wpg@gmail.com. So you can email me there. You can also email me at jack@thereikiden.com, or sorry, thereikiden.wpg.com, and I will get that message as well. You can also catch me on social media. I'm on Instagram. I am on Facebook. I am on X. It's Twitter, okay? It's freaking Twitter, but whatever. And I'm on TikTok as well. So you can definitely check me out any of those places. I'll leave all those links below, and you can just stop by and say hello. If you have anything that you'd like to ask, any questions, or just something that you'd like to share, or that you would like me to share, by all means, just let me know, and I would be happy to cover those things as well. I do hope you all have a lovely evening. It is actually New Year's Eve here, so it's about 6:15 here. So it's getting up there. We less than 6 hours until the new year starts. So I would love to hear from you guys about what you're doing for the new year. All right, we'll talk to you guys all later. I love you all. Take care. Bye-bye.